Megan Rapinoe, don't know how to say it, has courted controversy for years, from continuing to kneel during national anthems to her outspoken stances about equal pay, her refusal to go to the White House, and, right or wrong, being viewed as unpatriotic at best and anti-American at worst. Rapinoe missed an open penalty shot during a shootout to determine the winner of the first round match versus Sweden in the World Cup. Many are celebrating her downfall, while others have expressed sympathy. So is this karma, getting what she deserves? Would a truly patriotic person ever cheer that a U.S. team lost? So how should we think about this viral sports moment? I have the moment of her missed goal pulled up for us to watch here. Look, I don't know a lot about soccer, but I do know as a professional, you want to make this shot. A little slow motion. Just absolutely shanks it. Now, I have heard some hot takes on this, like, 47-year-old men who are like, look, I've never played soccer a day in my life. I would have made that goal. I have news for you. No, you would not have. Maybe I'm uniquely bad at soccer. I mean, I'm very, very open to that possibility. I only played in 8th grade. I got at least a yellow card every single match, which, if you don't know soccer, is not a good thing. I got handball all the time because if the ball was coming at my face, I was going to grab it with my hands. I was horrible. I was fast and I could actually dribble it, okay. And so I would go all the way down the field and I would get 6 feet away from the goal and I would kick it into the parking lot every single time. Even now, my oldest son, Lane, he does like soccer and he's pretty good at it. He didn't play in high school or anything, but he plays with his friends all the time. He's pretty talented. And we will go down to the high school and we'll bring a soccer ball. And I'm telling you, from 11 feet away, I do exactly what Megan Rapinoe did. Every time, somehow I shank it and kick it all the way over. It is so frustrating to me. Now, should she have kicked it like a field goal all the way over as a professional, as the captain of the U.S. women's team? Of course not. It's a bad look. And this is supposedly her last game of soccer that she's ever going to play. She's retiring after this. And so that is officially how she goes out. Now, if you don't know, Megan is very, very outspoken on so many different things. She's very outspoken on all kinds of different rights and things that she sees as wrong. She's made a lot of statements just about how, America really isn't living up to its promises and women can't get ahead and minorities can't get ahead. And she's kind of thumbed her nose at the idea of America throughout her career. Now, I always want to be as fair as possible. I also saw an article recently where someone very clearly said, are you unpatriotic? And she said, no. I just think that there are some things that need to be fixed and I'm fighting to change those things. I think a lot of people's problem is that she does tend to come off as very smug and very elitist. And suffice it to say, however the chips have fallen, a lot of people do not like Megan Rapinoe or however you say it. This is how little I know about soccer. I don't, she's the most famous woman in soccer. I don't know how to say her name. So they lost and they have won the World Cup. I think the last 2 times in a row. I think this would have been a three-peat for them. They were the odds-on favorite. Sweden was really the underdog and Sweden came in and beat them in the very first round. That's my understanding of what happened here. It was a huge upset. And so something very interesting happened because the people who by default don't like Megan Rapinoe and therefore U.S. women's soccer, because Megan represents them, I guess, are people who are at least a little bit patriotic, because the reason that they don't like her is because she's seen as not patriotic. And so we have kind of a catch-22 where the patriotic people don't like the captain of the U.S. women's soccer team that represents the United States, that the patriotic people are patriotic about. And so if our team, USA, if they win, then Megan wins. And no one likes Meghan because she represents America, but she hates America. That's at least the narrative. And so you had this very interesting moment where U.S. women's soccer lost, and you would think a patriotic person, it doesn't matter the team. I mean, look, when the Summer Olympics come around, all the patriotic people become, I mean, like racquetball, enthusiasts. Winter Olympics, they become, what's it called? Where you just throw the brick down you just throw a big rock and you just have brooms, in the comments, tell me what it is. I mean, it's like we're experts in that because you know why? America. That's why. And so then we have this very interesting thing where the most patriotic people in the country are celebrating one of our national teams losing. And it really does show you how like one rotten apple can spoil the whole bunch for people. And I do see both sides of this. I have an opinion. I'm really curious what you think in the comments of whether people who are patriotic should celebrate the loss of one of their nation's teams, regardless of who is on it, or whether they should just celebrate because we're patriotic and that's US. And if the US loses, we shouldn't celebrate. We should be sad about that. Here's what I think about patriotism. I think a lot of people confuse patriotism for people who love every single aspect of their country. And that's certainly not true. Patriotism is about gratitude for your country despite its many flaws. I have never been accused of being the world's most patriotic person. What has happened to me is the more I've studied human history and the more I've studied American history, the more I have come to see the American experiment as something that borders on the miraculous. And the other thing that I see is in our founding, which we had a lot of things wrong, some very obvious things like slavery. But then as the American experiment began to prove itself out and begin to live up to the tenets that we set forth in our Declaration, what I begin to see is the unmistakable Christian influence on the ideals that undergirded the country. And so the more I've learned, the more I have come to appreciate it and to have a lot of gratitude for our country. And I think that's patriotism. You can read about the founders and the early leaders of America, and they would not hesitate to talk about the flaws of America and the flaws and things that were going wrong and the things we needed to get right and the things we needed to improve on. And yet they still had a deep gratitude for their country. There's a few reasons I think that people are kind of dancing on Megan Rapinoe's grave here. In Proverbs, it says very clearly, when pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with the humble is wisdom. And again, I think her statements and her quotes and her kneeling and all of these things, all of that really upset a lot of people. I think way more than that, it was the sense of pride and the sense of entitlement that she has carried that really made her an enemy. In Matthew, Jesus said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And I think that's kind of the situation, at least from perception, which perception is often reality for people, that you have the captain of the American team who doesn't particularly like America. It feels like a house divided. And so the question really is, how should we respond? Now, if you are a believer, there's a very clear way to respond, even if you don't particularly like Megan Rapinoe's stances or you don't like how she carries herself. Jesus said, but to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Jesus was saying this in a very politically charged environment where Rome had come in and occupied Israel. And a lot of his instructions, when Jesus says, if someone asks you to walk a mile, walk two, that had very specific political connotation because there was a law in Roman territories where if a Roman soldier or centurion, they could pull anybody that they had in their provinces aside, take off all of their gear, make you carry it, and you had to carry it a mile for them. Whatever you were doing, you were working, you were drawing water from the well, you were playing with your kids. They could grab you, and by law, you had to walk their stuff a mile. And Jesus says, hey, they want you to walk 1 mile, walk 2 miles. And that's the kind of love and forgiveness that is expected of us. There's an ancient allegory. I believe it is a Greek allegory. I could be wrong about that, but it's the story of the broken pot. And it's a very simple story. There was a man who had 2 pots. One of them had a significant crack in it, and the other one was perfect and pristine. And the broken pot was just, used and all messed up. And every day he would fill that pot with water. That's what he would take to the well, and he would get water and he'd bring water back for his home and for his family. And of course, a lot of water would leak out. And in this kind of parable, the pots are personified, and the broken pot was always very insecure because it saw this absolutely perfect pot and it just couldn't live up to that ideal. And so one day it finally asked the owner, like, why do you use me? You have a perfect pot right there, and I'm cracked, I'm old, I have flaws. Why do you use me? And the owner said, pay attention on our walk back from the well. And on the walk back from the well, the owner pointed out all the flowers that grew along the path to the house because the broken pot would leak water and water the flowers on the way. And we're never going to have a perfect nation. Patriotism is having gratitude for your country despite its flaws. And I think really, if you're patriotic, and let me know what you think about this. I think if you really want to teach Megan Rapinoe a lesson, then mourn the loss of Team USA despite her rhetoric about the country. Here's my guess. My guess is that the reaction of gloating over the loss of Team USA, and almost like a storybook ending for anyone who did not like Mrs. Rapinoe. She had the chance. She shanked the shot, wide open penalty shot. She didn't make it. Everyone gloating over that. I would guess you're giving her exactly what she wants. I think you're actually making her point for her, that you're not actually patriotic. You don't actually like the country. You actually are a misogynist. You actually are all of these things. I think that you can still stand for your principles and not let someone get your goat so much. And you can practice this diligence and this forgiveness and this true patriotism, which isn't pretending like everything in your country is perfect. It's having deep gratitude for your country despite its flaws and fighting to mitigate those flaws and to continue building the best culture that you can.